Talk with Dr. Lori, we're going to talk about how to put the saxophone together. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my reed and I'm going to put that in my mouth. I'm going to get that wet. Now, normally when I'm putting a saxophone together, I would take this and I would keep this in my mouth the entire time so I can get the reed good and wet so I would be ready to play. But for this purpose, I'm going to go ahead and put it aside, pretending that I'm already getting that thing wet. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the neck strap. Okay, take out your neck strap, put it around your head, and I'm going to just pull it up part ways, and we're going to be adjusting this to fit, you know, when we decide, we talk about sitting and holding position and such, but for now I'm just going to keep it right about in there. Okay, next thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about the parts of the saxophone. This is called the neck. Okay, this neck of the saxophone. There's not many parts to the saxophone. This is one of three. This is the neck. And on the neck there's a little bit of cork, as you can see. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of this. This is called cork grease. And you probably have some of them in your case. If you don't have it in your case, you may want to get some. Sometimes cleaning kits would come with those. And you want to make sure that this cork on your neck is greased up really nicely. Okay? It makes putting on the mouthpiece a lot easier, and you want to make sure that you don't have to crank it on. So you've got some cork grease on there. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my mouthpiece. Now your mouthpiece will come with a mouthpiece cap on it. So you take that mouthpiece cap off, and then you have another metal thing on your mouthpiece. This is called a ligature. I'm going to set that ligature down just for a minute. We'll talk about the mouthpiece. You see you have an open end to the mouthpiece and you have a closed end to the mouthpiece. So on the neck, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the neck with the octave key, or this back key here, cradle it in palm of my hand, and then I'm going to hold it firmly between my forefinger and my thumb, and my other finger is going to rest on the part where the octave key is not. The octave key is one of the keys that bends very easily on the saxophone. You want to be really careful with it. So we're going to hold that carefully not to bend the octave key. And I'm going to take my mouthpiece in my right hand. I'm going to just gently push and get it about a little past halfway onto the mouthpiece, and we'll adjust this when we talk about tuning on the saxophone, but for now I'm going to put it right about there. When the cork is greased, it's very easy to put that on. You just want to carefully twist and push. Then we're going to take the ligature and the reed. The reed is made out of wood, and what we want to try to do is not to touch the reed too much with our fingers, because our fingers have oil and dirt on them, and if we rub our fingers all over the reed on this part, especially this part right here where it's already shaved, and this tip area, it's going to make the reed all gunky. It's going to get dirt in there and it's not going to play very well. It won't have a good sound. So we want to try to avoid that. So when I put the reed on, I put it on the flat side right here. I'm going to lay that down on the top, flat side to flat side, and then I'm going to take my fingers and I'm going to use them to put the reed on in the right place on the sides here. I'm not going to push it down with my finger. I'm not going to rub it around and move it with my thumb. I'm going to use the sides of my finger so I can get it lined up. When I get it lined up, I'm going to take my left hand thumb. If you're right hand, you do the right hand, left hand, left hand. You're going to put your left hand thumb here, and you're going to hold on to that nice and firm so you can check it to make sure you have it in the right position. What I like to do is make sure that when I look at the reed, I'm going to see a little hairline of black sticking up over the top of the reed. Just a little bit, because you want it to be just slightly behind the very tip of the reed, or tip of the mouthpiece, sorry. Okay, so we've got that in place. I'm holding it very firmly with my thumb. I'm going to take my ligature next. Ligatures come in different ways. This ligature is what we call the inverted ligature because the screws are on the top of this one. The ligature that you probably have in your case, or you may have one like this, but if you have one that has the screws on the bottom, that's called a regular ligature. You can always tell how to put a ligature on because the ligature on there are two sides. There's a bottom side which is larger and the top side is smaller. It fits how the mouthpiece tapers like that. So what you're going to do is you're going to take the larger side first, carefully put that over your mouthpiece top and the reed, avoiding the tip, not pushing that, and I'm going to hold carefully on the sides, and then I'm going to pull this down. I've already opened up the screws so that they're not tight, and I can pull that down. How far do you pull down, you might ask? Well, you go down past the part that's shaved, about to the part where you see the unshaven part. It looks like wood right there, okay? It looks like it's not shaved. So you want to put it at least to the top of that. Sometimes on mouthpieces you might see a little line, and you want to line it up with that too. It's really important you put your ligature in the right place too, because if it's too low, if it's too high, it doesn't hold the reed on properly, and you want to make sure you hold the reed on properly. Okay, we've got it in the right spot now, so we're going to just tighten those screws up just a little bit. We don't have to crank them too far, but you put them on fairly snugly so that the reed doesn't come flying off once you start moving it around a little bit too. So mouthpiece, ligature, neck. Now we're going to talk about the body of the saxophone. I'm going to lay this down just for a second so I can pick up the body. When I pick up the body of the saxophone, it's laying in my case. I pick it up from the bell, and then as soon as I pick it up high enough, I grab it on the bottom like this. I want to make sure I don't drop it. It's actually pretty heavy, so you have to make sure you hang on to it. Okay, I'm going to lay that on my knee, across my knee, and I'm going to go ahead and hook my neck strap in. I like to hook the neck strap in because just in case I happen to let go of it, it won't go flopping on the floor. And it's happened many times to many people, so you want to make sure you're always hanging on to this. Make sure it doesn't go rolling onto the floor. Okay? Alright, so I've got this neck strap insured on here, so I've got a hold of it, and now I'm going to go ahead and put the neck onto the saxophone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this saxophone right here between my knees, hold on to it, and I'm going to take the neck, and I'm going to hold the neck again in a place where I'm not going to bend or crush this key. It's very important not to do that, okay? So I'm going to hold my fingers on the part where it's just the metal, not the key, and I'm going to make sure that the screw on the right side is open, just a little bit. I have to unscrew it a long ways, just a little bit so it's open. Then I'm going to very carefully put the neck in, and I'm going to just gently push it, and you notice that there's a little rod sticking up. That rod goes underneath, so you're going to very carefully make sure that rod is underneath. Gently push and twist it. The rod's underneath, and I've got that in the right place. And then I'm going to take the screw on the right side. I'm going to tighten that a little bit too, so it's nice and firmly in place. Now we're probably going to go ahead and again move the neck and the mouthpiece a little bit later when we talk about sitting and holding position. But you've got it lined up nicely here so that the back side of the reed and the mouthpiece line up nicely with the thumb rest in the back here. Okay? And so that's how you put it together. When you're sitting in resting position, usually I like to just let the saxophone rest on my right knee, and I hold it like this. Always have a hand on your saxophone when you're playing. Don't just let it sit there and slop around like that. Not good for the saxophone. It could easily fall on the floor, and they're very expensive to take over and get repaired. So they're very expensive. So you want to make sure you don't do that. So always have your hand on the saxophone. I generally just keep my right hand right here below where the thumb rest area is. There's a little hook down here. That's for your right hand thumb. I just generally keep my hand right on that the entire time when I'm playing. And it's just good for safety. Okay? That's how you put your saxophone together. So we'll see you the next time, and we'll talk about putting the saxophone away.